RFK Jr. said he would suspend the NIH's research into infectious diseases, at least temporarily, if he's elected to the White House. Now, while speaking at a conference for the Children's Health Defense, an anti-vax organization, RFK Jr. said, "I'm going to say to NIH scientists, God bless you all. Thank you for public service. We're going to give infectious diseases a break for about 8 years."
Scientist Peter Hotez responded to RFK Jr.'s plan, posting on X, "My view, presumably the fourth major coronavirus after SARS, MERS, SARS-2, which may arrive before 2030, will appreciate that. Same for zoonotic influenza viruses and the arboroviruses in Texas and Florida." He also accused those who want to limit the NIH's scope of research of doing so for political brownie points, writing, quote, "that we have elected leaders, U.S. presidential candidates, gleefully discussing the collapse of NIAID or NIH or dismantling our infectious diseases research infrastructure. To me, says they have no knowledge, concern about our national security and are willing to risk this for their political gain." Obviously, Peter Hotez, RFK Jr. have been on opposite sides of this war.
Peter Hotez is the one who's too afraid to debate anyone who knows something that's contrary to what he thinks.
Exactly.
And who changed his tune on whether vaccines were untested and scary when it was under the Trump administration, and then when it became Biden's thing, then it was, you have to get one right now, or else you're a deranged anti-scientist person. I'm being very objective toward this person.
No, I'm sure, but he might not be the best fighter, the most credible voice pushing back against RFK Jr. But, you know, is there a critique to be made of saying we're going to basically shut infectious disease research down for a few years? Is that going too far? Is that what it's required to correct some of the mistakes that were made during COVID, to completely not look into this whole area of research whatsoever?
All research into, well, and first of all, like, research into infectious diseases will continue because that's done by universities and by scientists. What he really means is, like, these organizations issue grants to fund that research. So even if they stop doing that, I mean, that research could continue with private philanthropy or just the support of the universities, and, you know, what it's that wouldn't actually be making research into infectious diseases illegal, which is, I don't think, what we want to do. We should have a pause on gain-of-function research, which actually has been, I think, re-implemented, although it was too imperfect when Obama did it. There was too many exceptions allowed. What we really want is more transparency and more democratic accountability of top health advisor officials like Dr. Anthony Fauci. It's no longer him. It's the new replacement. The American people, vis-a-vis their legislators, people like Senator Rand Paul and others who have been grilling these officials on what they're doing. I want to see more of that, and I want to pause dangerous, risky research under unsafe lab conditions in China or anywhere else. Look, I don't need a total ban on all research being done. Seems to be going a little broad.
Well, maybe you should run for president, Robby, because that sounds a lot more reasonable and frankly tailored to what the concerns were about what happened during COVID than saying we're going to give infectious disease a break for about 8 years. I mean, what's the scientific principle? I mean, what is the public health rationale for the 8-year number?
Maybe I think that's
not 12 years, not 4 years.
I think it just means he'd be president
until I'm out of. So basically, what you're saying, that does feel kind of plainly political to say when I'm president, because part of my brand is being anti-vax. And I'm not saying he wouldn't characterize himself like that, obviously. I'm sorry, I don't mean to put words in his mouth. But part of my brand is being skeptical about the way at least the COVID vaccines were rolled out. I am just going to flatten this whole realm of investigation or of oversight. I mean, it reminds me of the kind of messaging that we've seen from Vivek Ramaswamy, who recently said that he is going to cut down on the number of people who work for the government by basically picking even or odd numbers and firing everybody whose social security number ends with either an even or odd number to just Thanos. I always do that. Thanos the workforce in half. I mean,
I am inevitable.
Okay. Like, is this this is meritocracy? This is running the government, trying to keep good people and not bad people, or people who are necessary in their positions versus not. I mean, these blunt force tools do start to feel like you're not actually interested in improving outcomes from these departments or for Americans, and more about symbolically just raising the field.
Yeah, I would sooner Thanos snap half the entire federal workforce probably than I would just shut down the NIH for 8 years. We have too many federal employees. Obviously, I would like the cuts to be more thought through than are you an odd or an even? But
does that include military personnel? I mean, I would love there to be huge cuts to the military, but again, are you going to unwind this in a way that makes sense in terms of the public safety? Or are you just doing it to be doing it?
Right.
I mean, these are very spicy ideas that I think if they were more publicized, the mainstream would not be happy with.
We can use,
the public, rather.
I can only get so excited about this.
No, I don't mean the mainstream like the establishment. I mean like the average American, many of whom, frankly, work for the government.
Yeah. And many of whom know how pointless a lot of the government work is because they see it firsthand. But
sure, but are you going to have a just transition? Or are you just going to have massive unemployment? I mean, these are questions that serious people have to answer. And I think that we were open to creative solutions that many of these younger, newer candidates are bringing. But when they get accused of not being real politicians, not knowing how things work by establishment actors, I don't like that. I don't think that you have to be a lawyer or a congressman to run for president. Absolutely not. But I do think it's incumbent on all of them, whether it's Cornel West or RFK Jr. or Marianne Williamson or Cenk Uygur or anybody, Vivek Ramaswamy, to be serious. You don't have to be a lawyer to be president, but you have to have really thought out things beyond what the sloganeering is.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, you can be serious and thoughtful and still bad, though, is the problem with a lot of
that's why the establishment's all bad.
It's serious to the experts, the serious-minded people, the government, advisor class has enshrined a permanent bureaucracy that sometimes works counter to the will of the people and even counter to the will of the actually democratically elected political people, which is part of the problem with our National Intelligence Bureau and also our Health Bureau. And if RFK Jr. was talking about shutting, I'd be more, the CDC, to my mind, is the health agency that went really awry during the pandemic, or rather revealed how badly it was managed and run, everything from the early testing screw-up to guidance that quickly became, maybe, I guess they can say it wasn't our fault, we were just issuing guidance, but quickly became like the rule of law that was erroneous on many fronts. That sort of thing. That agency, this was this agency's moment, and it failed that moment very badly. So there is a place where wholesale reform and maybe, frankly, even some gutting, in my view,
yes, I would love to hear him talk more about gutting the CIA. I don't know.
I said the CDC, but the CIA,
the CIA, the FBI.
Yeah.
What's the point of him having this discourse?
Easy. Are you running for government as a Republican? We have a Republican candidate, Briahna Joy Gray, over here.
As I pointed out for a long time, the biggest opponents to those three-letter agencies historically have been the biggest victims of those three-letter agencies, which have been the left.
Now we're all victims.
And I mean, we have always all been victims, but I think the Palestinian censorship issues are really, I think, highlighting for a lot of leftists why they should really take up this fight and stop being mad at me for agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene that we need to defund the FBI.
Sounds good to me. More Rising right after this.